I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Meeting to order. Got the Pledge of Allegiance done. I need to have the minutes approved from January 29th, regular meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approve employee claims filed with the county auditor for $1,179.02.
Motion to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Monthly report from the recorder's office for $14,327.33.
Motion to approve.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approve the minor plat for Joe Detweiler.
This has been going on for quite some time, so it was rezoned in November 28th, 2022, from A1 to manufacturing. The red line here is Fairbank Amish. There's the Detweiler grocery store just to the north on the west side of the road. So if you've been out there, obviously growth has gone pretty quickly. Originally was going to be a harness shop. There was no restrictions on the rezoning. And this is basically to confirm that the lot of record is in compliance and able to put on the mapping with the assessor site. So we've had no issues from any of the department heads. As you are out there, it was originally going to be a harness shop and almost like an Amish farm fleet, which it did become. And then when the two other lumber yards did not grow or open as they had planned, he didn't have a restriction on his rezoning, so he brought in some lumber and it has grown and is starting to supply that community with several options with OSB, structural lumber, etc. So there's been a couple accessory buildings built along with the main shed, but I was out there a couple weeks back and bought some tools. I mean, they have a numerous amount of supplies. And they're doing quite well from what I can see. So as far as compliance, everything's in order, taxes are paid, legal description for them reviewed by Marine. No calls, complaints. The reason why it took so long is that there was a lot of, my understanding, family parties that had to be involved in this decision to sign the minor plat, because we do make sure that that's all in compliance as well.
And everybody in the neighborhood surrounding area is okay with it. You didn't get any pushback, resistance to any of this.
Normally, this process would be done, 2 and 3 months after the rezoning, but this one drug out a little bit. Joe was quite busy, and then number two, like I said, the family members signed it. And Robertson Eddie handled all the documentation.
All right.
Do you have any questions, Clayton?
No. Go ahead and make a motion to approve that, their plat.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up is Hazelton Township trustee appointment.
Got an application here from Vincent Michaels. He had previously applied to and for an opening here a few months back, but since then this person has resigned, so it opened the position, needed a position at the Hazelton Township Trustee Board. So looked over his application and I think he's well qualified, I think, to fulfill the duties of township trustees. So guess I'd make a motion to go ahead and appoint Vincent Michaels for the Hazelton Township Trustee.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's done. And then I would like to change to do the door between DHS and the food pantry, the top of our items for discussion, if that's okay?
Yep, there is.
Okay, so we were originally gonna attempt to put a door between the food pantry and DHS in that kitchen. I know that the way that the food pantry is using the kitchen, probably not gonna be a good idea.
Well, they kind of wanted an extra room from DHS to meet with clients and what this room's gonna be used for, my understanding of the food pantry is could be kind of a utility catch-all, do-all room. And as they have produce come in, if the produce has to be sorted through, rewashed, rebagged, in operation like that, this is the only room they got to do that, and understanding that happens a lot out there. So to try and coordinate this room so that DHS can come into our clients, is the writing's pretty much on the wall. It's not gonna work out. So, and if they've said that they need access to water, but there's other things we can do out there, give them access to water out there. Right now, they presently, if they do need some water, they have to go in the restroom and get it. But there's things that we can do out there if we need to. If they need something done, even by simply sticking a water cooler out there in that area. So, and that would be on them. So I'm thinking it's just not gonna work out by having this doorway. And
Do you have anything to add, Nancy?
I agree, just because I'm out there, I was unloading potatoes before I came and there was a bag that had rotten wood in it. You know, it's just that one that comes from the grocery store.
Right.
That's where we have to go to empty them out, clean it out, put the good ones back out. There's an air vent there too that needs to be, would have to be moved or done something to. I don't think it's large enough to turn into a conference room, which is kind of what they wanted with the cabinetry and everything in there. It's one of the smaller rooms now. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
And not only that, this room they were talking about, maybe there could be some children or something involved going in this room. And this room is gonna have chemicals, cleaning supplies in it, stuff. And to make sure everything's put away, not left out, so some child can get a hold of something. It just creates an unsafe situation too, so we don't want to get that kind of liability thing going on the food pantry people out there, something like that, so. I just think it's not a place to have families go into this room. And, you know, a lot of times when you are working with rotten produce, the smell that it creates.
I know that we had put that on our project list.
That was on the project
Funds, yes.
list too, but we can move that from the project list to that
There's,
one to change that.
right, there's still something though out there that, when hallway was walled off, the contractors left the door on the DHS side. So when you open it up, you actually open it up to studs in the backside of drywall. So we probably want to maybe take some of that money and move that door out of the.
Take that door.
Yep.
Fill that in with some sheet rock or something like that, because people think they got an egress door there and they just run into a wall after they open the door up.
Probably not the best thing. Do we need a motion on this?
Well, we're actually changing, we did make a motion to do this project, so I would say that we would need to rescind that part of that motion, that we're not gonna do that additional door going into this room.
You can just make a motion that you're not gonna do that door and use the funds towards whatever the other project is. And that way we just have it documented.
I'll make a motion to not be putting the doorway and to fill the other doorway in more permanent, some sheet rocking or whatever is appropriate to fill that in, use the funds for doing that.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
thank you for what you do out there. Appreciate your volunteer.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes.
We are having an open house in April. So if any of your community people would like to come and see it, we'll get a publication out. It's a wonderful space. Thank you for allowing us to use that space. it's a nice improvement.
Good,
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, next up, place on file the following manure plan, management plans, Indy, Byron Township, section 19. Second, all in favor? Aye. Review bathroom flooring bill. Clayton, this is your project?
Well. And I've been John's been working on that. You can see John is not here today. I haven't heard a word from anybody that, additional patching or prep needed to be done. I haven't heard anything to that effect. That was kind of left open. So I'm assuming that the bill that was presented here is the final one of $9,035.
It's for the first two.
Yeah.
That we did.
So I think they probably want paid as they go on, so. And that's, one of them that we're gonna add in, because we actually pretty much budgeted $200,000 of ARPA for this bathroom remodel. And, we're gonna have sufficient amount of funds left in that to cover this cost. So. And I'm not recalling if we did anything, passed on approving that. I know we approved that floor to be done, but where the funding was coming from, do you recall, Chris? So. There was gonna be an additional billing coming in for this flooring, so. Saying we need to use ARPA funds for doing this.
So you want it lumped in under the ARPA funds that you're already approved?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have the original bid that we got for this?
John's got that in his file.
Because it really needs to be put all together with the project.
Okay.
Just for tracking purposes.
I can get that number from him or see if he's got it in his file down there.
It's probably in his pile someplace.
I'll get that dollar amount, but. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion and we approve this, getting this initial payment done.
Do you want a balance on that, Chris? For the payment amount for his motion?
But he can just state the amount that was invoiced.
Okay,
$9,035 to M&K Flooring.
all right, I will second that. Favor? Aye. Next up is a change order for courthouse restroom remodel. That's your project.
Well. Come to find out, we're trying to make these restrooms, as much as possible, compliant with, ADA and stuff. Not that we're required, there's two to do that, but we're making a good faith effort to do as much as we can in these bathroom remodels to make them more user friendly, that people that have, physical conditions and stuff that struggle with using a public restroom. So, one of the things that was noticed is that the mirrors, they even get as far as mirrors, the old mirrors in there may not meet requirements for ADA or anything like that. They were smaller mirrors and stuff, so we're trying to make these restrooms look as nice as we can. If we're going through with the remodeling, to do as much as we can with minimal cost on there. And there again, we got money in the ARPA to cover this additional cost for these mirrors. $848.98. So.
And that's for 4 mirrors, correct?
Yeah, what's that?
Was it for 4 mirrors or 3 mirrors?
Yeah.
I think it was 3. I could be wrong.
3 restrooms covered for that.
Okay.
So I would like to go ahead and add this in too as part of the ARPA project on these restrooms. For $848.98 to make sure their mirrors are in compliance too.
Second that? All in favor?
Aye.
Courthouse exterminator.
Well, as you know, I had a critter in our office last week. And I don't recall, as long as I've been here, that we've ever had an exterminator come in and go through the courthouse. And I find it hard to believe if there was one mouse, there's not more. And I just wanted to know the board's thought about possibly getting an exterminator, at least to come in maybe every quarter or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. But I can't imagine with at least the mess that's even upstairs that we don't have mice running through this courthouse.
Do you have somebody come over near, or who do you use over there? Orkin. Would you mind getting us contact information for them and we can have the rep come in and talk to one of us?
Well, I have the contact information and the vendors,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
but am I gonna be the one responsible getting them in here and
You don't have to-
contacting them, or is the board? I mean, how, I just wanna know the steps that we can take to get this.
I think the board could take that on and do that. If we get the contact information, if you have that, we get that to
Yep.
us.
Well, thank you for volunteering, Clayton.
I'll just make some phone calls, have them come in there and take them around the courthouse when they get here. And did you have any luck catching this one?
Yes,
Good.
that doesn't mean I like it.
No. I,
Yeah, we don't want
I
people.
mean, I got
on their desks, try to avoid
$70,000 worth of election equipment
Oh,
back
I
there.
know.
What happens if someone gets in there and chews up some wiring?
I know it exactly. I agree. They're not, they just don't chew on food. They chew on other stuff.
Right. Would you like a motion for that,
Yes, please.
Clayton?
I'll make a motion that Dawn talks to. I will do that.
All right, I'll second the motion that Clayton calls the exterminator. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pioneer Cemetery update.
Joe, you wanna come on up?
Well, I think you received the document over the weekend on subsequent burials in Pioneer cemeteries. You had requested some months ago that the commission come up with some recommendations. The county owns 4 Pioneer cemeteries. So anything you do about that only relates to those 4 cemeteries. The question on allowing or disallowing future burials is up to the owner of the cemetery. But the county is the owner in the case of these 4.
Does that include the one out here at the county home?
No, that's not a Pioneer. So we drew up over the course of time, let's say we discussed over the course of time what we want in it, and Al drew it up this past month, and then we met a week ago and tweaked it a bit, and he sent it on to you. These things are termed policy recommendations rather than rules. If we call them rules, then you probably would be looking at an ordinance. And it would have to be much more expansive, and it would essentially tie your hands anyway, because any one of these situations is going to be unique.
Mhm.
We think, you know that more than I, we think we have a request for burial in one of the Pioneer cemeteries. Now, that request would have come to the board. And we don't know whether it came to the board. Al had an inquiry from someone, and apparently the auditor's office had an inquiry on the subject last summer. Because I did see an email from Maureen asking about whether subsequent burials make the cemetery cease to be Pioneer, etc. So I'm suspecting that someone had at least inquired there on the subject. At any rate, whether you have a formal inquiry or not, you are only obliged to say yes or no, period. But with these guidelines, if you say yes, here are the regulations you need to follow, or if you say no, no, and here's why. So these are not binding, and as Al mentioned in his cover letter, he doesn't think they require an ordinance. They're simply an internal working document.
I read through it here last week. Is there any criteria that would say, is there standard criteria, I guess, for burials that say the body's got to be placed 6 foot deep?
Well, that's
Is there
state law.
anything in there?
State law.
So was there anything in here saying that this burial takes place, it has to follow state law?
Yes.
And then they would have to sign off on it. A member of the family.
Yeah.
Or a trustee or whatever, who might be or an executor.
And again, these guidelines are not binding in any way. So if you have a situation where you say, well, we can't really apply this, that's fine. Because it hasn't been cast in concrete as an ordinance.
My understanding on a pioneer cemetery, you're not required to do specific amount of grooming of that cemetery or anything else. So these people would have to realize that the pioneer cemetery is probably gonna not look like.
Yes, it mentioned in here, these are not perpetual care cemeteries, and the care of the graves is up to the family.
Means these are county-owned cemeteries and stuff like that. I think we did want our county attorney to review this policy,
Oh, yeah,
get his thoughts and input on it.
but again, it's simply an internal working document.
Mhm.
It's not a set of hard and fast rules. It's just guidance on what do we say if somebody comes in with this request. The only two the county owns that are likely to have a request are Shady Grove and Hickory Grove. And we have had inquiries on both of those, but no one has made a formal request that I'm aware of.
And you got these are all plotted out to make sure that if a burial took place or not taken or another previous burial had been done, so.
Yeah, that's covered in this document too, that if you cannot describe it as row such and such, lot such and such, then they're going to have to get it described. And that's their expense. If they need a survey, whatever, that's their problem, but it has to be described. And it also mentions that the grave should be hand dug in the chance that you do come upon another one.
You don't have a backhoe in there or something.
Yeah, well, there are, we presume or know, a lot of unmarked burials in these pioneer cemeteries. And so if someone is looking at burial there, the commission will know where available space would be. Maybe. Some of those we don't know. Hickory Grove is a good example. There's a large section at the back that has no stones. Does that mean there are no burials? We don't know.
So I guess I'm fine with this. A lot of times family maybe had past ancestry connections with the cemetery or something like that, and they want the individual buried there where the
Yeah.
ancestors are at, stuff like
And
that.
there's one county-owned pioneer cemetery, the Payne Cemetery, which is essentially a family cemetery. And if more of the family wants to be buried there, they may have pre-existing interment rights.
Kind of a grandfathered issue. I have no problem with proceeding forward that, having our county attorney look over this policy and seeing if it's, what he okay with it.
Yes, Because again, as I said, the only thing you are required to do is say yes or no.
I know here a couple, 3 years ago, we had a request from the previous board, the family was looking for a burial spot and they wanted to use the county old cemetery out there and stuff, and it was going through to be approved to allow that and stuff. But right in the middle of doing that, somebody came up from the family and contributed enough money to put them out to Mount Hope. So that kind of went away.
Yeah,
And that never
Well,
happened.
the current county home cemetery is not a pioneer cemetery, so there again, I mean, if someone wants buried there, he issues you a formal request. But the pioneer cemeteries are a little different situation because of the uncertainty as to the location of graves. In some of them, the lack of plat. Just a whole group of things that make it very different.
So do you want to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion that we move ahead with try and allow this, but we have to get input from our county attorney on that first.
Okay, second, in favor?
Aye.
Ooh,
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
there are two speed cameras. W45 and C57, Aurora.
Get the information here from you.
Well, good morning. I'm Brian Kiley. I just
Yeah.
figured I'd step up in here too.
Yeah.
Just some people think for safety reasons and the speeds we got going through town there that we need to have some control.
Right.
See if we can slow them down, I guess. We've been putting them at York and Buffalo and Warren and Slater, those intersections with the cameras.
That'll be a total. How many cameras?
Well, it'd be four actually point each direction at two spots, point each direction, so it'd be 4 cameras.
Are you gonna allow any, wow, 72 miles an hour? Are you going to allow any leeway with the speed? Like 5 miles per hour?
Yeah, that's, we were kind of talking about 5 mile an hour, no ticket, and then going above. We haven't set anything in stone yet on that. Talked about 6 to 10 mile an hour, started a ticket, and then as it goes higher, faster they go, the books.
Are you aware? I think there again, I think the legislatures are talking about that again down there. Anyway. So,
I heard that the other day.
I guess not knowing what comes out of that, I guess I would be a little cautious about moving instantly forward with this until find out what that
What's
says.
gonna happen down
What
there?
I mean, seems like they've been dealing with every year now for several years.
Yeah, we talk about it every year down there, but nothing happens, yeah.
But some years something will happen, I guess, so
Mhm.
I don't know, I'd be thinking that maybe it'd be a wise thing, or if you do get an agreement that with this company, whoever you're working with, this is saying that, some legislations
Right,
passed, the city of Aurora doesn't get stuck with a big bill because they gotta come and tear them out.
mhm,
Yeah.
And there's required signage that goes along with them too, is my understanding.
mhm. And the company that would do that with the cameras would put that all
We'll
in.
put the signage in.
Yeah.
there.
And
Yeah.
install the cameras and pull on the poles.
Who monitors the feeds? Or,
We can set the fees up ourselves, that's.
okay, but who monitors that
the
as
ticket
far as,
fee.
yeah,
Right now, we've been talking to the sheriff down here, and we've talked to some other, people about doing it. We haven't really picked anybody out for sure yet. But the same company is up in West Union, so we've talked with them that we think they might look at our tickets for us.
Then if you were to protest the ticket, where would you go to? Would you go to that courthouse or this courthouse?
Probably just, I mean, we haven't, I don't know if that's decided yet. It'll probably be this courthouse if it's in Buchanan County.
You know on that, Scott?
No, on what?
Well, if the violation is done in the city of Roar, which is in Buchanan County, but the company that's doing the monitoring and issuing the tickets and everything is from out of county.
Well, the tickets themselves, there's no, it's a civil penalty. If, like, let's say they have a person that has 5 tickets, hasn't paid, they'd have to make that they'd have to turn that into a infraction, a city infraction, and take that to court if they're not paying for that. Then that's when, wherever the violation took place, it would turn it would be in Buchanan County.
So, and the people that,
Doesn't the initial argument stay with the city?
Yeah,
Like Ableton, let's say I get a ticket, I want to appeal it. I think that's done at this Hazleton City Hall and a group of people, whatever they pick. If the, I won't say defendant, but if the violator wants to proceed further, I think then it's done into magistrate court for a decision. Is that correct?
well, they'd have to change it to a city infraction or like a small claims.
Small claims. Take it into magistrate.
And this requires, I'm sure, an ordinance by the city council. Have you working on getting something in place as far
We've
as?
been working on that, yeah.
I'm assuming Hazelton's got one, so.
Who's the company you're working with?
I'm not sure. It's a different one than we started with, and I'm not even sure what the name of the company is now. Somebody else kind of working on this.
Is it Genoptics?
Tumit. The speed checks, I think. But I think they're working with somebody different now.
And you're gonna have 4 cameras and it's on the corner of Young and Union.
Yeah.
Or York, I'm sorry.
York and Buffalo. York and Buffalo, and then Warren and Slater. And there'd be a camera in each direction, each spot. So there'd be 4 cameras.
York and Slater.
One of the things that's interesting is based on their speed study. And the current laws, the speed's posted too low. You're supposed to base it on 85% of the people are driving.
Oh, really?
And this is showing that
that doesn't make sense to me, because if 85% of the people are driving 100 miles an hour through there, then that's what it's supposed to be posted at.
other than 55-mile-an-hour max, but that is the way the MUTCD reads, Dawn. Yes, you base the speed on 85 percentile, what the average person is driving, is the theory.
And this is within city limits.
That's,
I would think that they could probably choose their own speed of city limits. They can make an ordinance or something.
Cause I know out there where they got them out here by the schools, if you go 21 or 22, you're gonna get a ticket.
yeah, I'm just,
No.
that's the way the law is based on 80,
26.
or the MUTCD is based on 85
20
percent.
miles.
So they allow going up to 26.
26 to get a ticket during school zone period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a 30-mile-an-hour zone all other times outside the school zone times.
And then I go 6 over on that too, I thought.
Yeah, I think it's 10 over and outside of school zone times.
I hadn't had one yet, so I didn't.
I think both of them. I think that's the way they have them set up. On the two, except except for the school zone periods.
I guess this is something issue that, I've always said that I don't want to tell the city how to run their city. You know, if that's what you feel your residents and your council and the mayor are wanting, I'm not gonna put up a resistance to it.
Okay. There's some thinking the speed's a little fast for safety for everybody in town.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I personally would rather see our sheriff's department do other things than just be traffic police.
Right,
Far more important things for them to do.
that's true.
This is something that I feel has got to be looked at as a safety issue, not a revenue getter.
Right. That's
So
why
I don't know what you need from us. I mean, other than, I don't know if we need to make a motion here that this morning or something that, we're okay with the Aurora proceeding with the speed camera project.
What effect does this, is there any changes that the county's gonna have to do? Because I don't recall, and I could be wrong, when Hazelton put theirs up, I don't think the board was involved in that. So I'm trying to figure out what our involvement
If
is.
we even have to be.
Well, the difference is the population. With Hazelton being over 500, they are responsible for that stretch of road. With Aurora being under 500 population, the county is responsible for the road. Now, that's where the board would come into play.
Maintenance of the road plus safety of the road, or just maintenance of the road?
Well, the way it's being defined is the 22 feet in the center the board's responsible for. And that's where the discussion on the funding goes to. And in Aurora's case, you say, hey, keep the money and take care of the maintenance. And so that's where, and I'm not an attorney, so that's where attorneys would really come into play, but that's where I would think the board would have, if they have ultimate responsibility for the road, they would have a say on the
I
speed.
really think that's before you give the city approval to do this, I think you should contact our county attorney because I don't want to throw the county into some type of liability.
Right, exactly. I agree.
Right.
Is the county liable for or responsible for the signage?
We're responsible for the signage, yes. And even though they say the 22 feet, but.
So basically all that expense would come back on the county?
Well, the expense goes back to putting up the signs, and that's where the question was asked.
So would the county be responsible for putting up the signs? You just stated that we would be, so that would throw more on our guys.
This company was supposed to do the signage.
That was a question we'd asked a little bit ago. And you
Yeah,
said that.
I heard that, but wait, and maybe I misunderstood you, but I thought you just said the county would be responsible for the signage.
Stop signs, the street signs, the
Okay.
county.
The power, where they're getting the power for, is that already incorporated somewhere on one of the posts?
They did have to put posts in and get hooked up to it. But that's the company was gonna do that too, that
Oh,
they're gonna do all that.
So the company's is gonna do the signage
Yeah.
and their company's gonna do,
If they got put in the, well, I call it
put up the-
Alliant Energy, if we could use their pole, and they said they don't allow that, so they'd have to put a pole in for the cameras.
I know Hazelton, they had to put their poles in and get power to them and things like that. The company didn't pay for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They had the same problem that
Right.
power companies didn't want, or
Mm.
telephone companies didn't want.
Yeah, that's what I talked to them the other day. They said they don't normally do that, so.
Okay, I guess we need to go talk to Sean about this too and say, is there any issues? Same road, the county's okay with putting speed cameras up in a town of under 500 population.
okay. I guess it's tabled again.
Okay,
Until we find out what.
okay, I'll wait till I hear from you guys.
What we hear from Sean, our county attorney.
Okay, sounds great.
And they got a lot, don't expect something instantly because they got a lot going on, a lot on their plate, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Does the city have a time frame they're planning on having this done, or?
Not really, it's kind of taken in baby steps, because seems like it takes a long time to get anything done.
It does.
And if they gotta do it, you probably gotta hold off really before you do go to the expense of having your city attorney do an ordinance and everything until you find out what the legislature is doing, to
Right.
find out what our county attorney has to say about it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't, go ahead and
and too much money, just wait a little bit, yeah.
I'm assuming they'll rule on that before July,
Yeah.
and that's gonna move forward.
Oh, yeah, we'd know something by then, I would think.
Okay, we'll just wait to hear from you then.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you. Public comments.
And Steve Cameron's
Timekeeper's not here.
what is the decision when we get to this point? You know, is there an actual summary of accidents in these areas where all these cameras are going up? Number one. Number two, is there a record over a 3-year period of how many speeding tickets have been given in this area? I just look at it as a citizen, it's an extra taxation. Also, Fairbank has a lit up speed limit when you come into town at 27, 25, 35, whatever you're going along with Raleigh. Have those actions been taken before we jump to the speed cameras? I just have a problem traveling through Northeast Iowa, West Union, Owine, Hazelton, Independence, consistently across the board. And, you know, from a taxpayer standpoint, I feel that's, and I'm talking as a taxpayer, not an employee right now. I just feel that's why we hire and budget certain entities with certain amounts of money. And then all of a sudden we're just plopping cameras everywhere across the countryside. So I would like that. I would like to see what the process is to get to the point of the camera. I lived out by the schools for 7 years, and there is probably less than 100 walkers on that new 6-foot sidewalk. There's been 0 accidents to my knowledge. And all of a sudden we plop in a camera at 20 miles an hour. The hill coming out of West Elementary, trying to get in and out of somebody going 19 miles an hour is more of a issue than somebody going 26 to 30 miles. And I just don't think there's enough discussion. We just look at the money. So there's my opinion.
Good point. Yeah, I know, I think when, Oscar, I don't know where it was, it was discussed down there, just what Chad said. They wanted to know if there had been any problems, or they were talking about putting a light or stop down there right in the middle of town that, they said, the question was asked, well, how many times has there been a crash or an accident down here? Well, I think there was maybe one for 10 years.
I think what you're referring to as signal lights is what Kowalski was, or not Kowalski, but Hazelton was requesting on 150. Correct? There were some efforts on City of Kowalski's part, City of Hazelton's
Yeah,
part.
Kowalski was going to the same thing down there.
Yeah, well, and then Kowalski was talking the intersection lately, and I told him, yeah, I've got to follow the book on this stuff. I can't just go out and put stop signs up wherever you want to. Because there's guidelines on that too. And the comment back was, well, then we'll just leave it alone, or else we'll put in a roundabout.
Further questions?
Is it contracts like wind
You can,
or just this? Okay.
Comments.
Brandon, I have 14 more signatures to add to the, so it'll bring up 786 signatures. And I would like to ask you, and John's not here today. You know, things have been kind of slow here during the winter and that kind of thing. I just want to know how much contact you had from Next Era or Bright Future Iowa. I know Bright Future Iowa had one of the people, I'm not going to mention who it was, but made a comment about the NIMBYs, which are not my backyard, which is the people that are fighting for our rights. And also talked about activists. And, you know, that's all part of this woke
BS that's going around the country is that if you don't agree with me, I'm gonna put a title on you and make you seem like a villain. So just want to know what kind of interaction you two have had with Right Future or next year.
It's been very calm, and I haven't been, when this all started several months ago, I was getting inundated with a lot of calls, pro and con. But I can honestly say that it's been very silent and quiet, and I think probably with the next era of folks or people that are supporting this project are waiting to see what comes out of the P and Z and what's gonna be presented to us. So I think when that happens, there's gonna be a lot of people here at the courthouse.
Sure.
But I haven't, no, there's been very little contact. Not been approached.
Yeah.
Hardly any.
Well, I know next year us and Right Future Iowa are in bed together because the finances now, like it was posted that next year it's supporting Right Future Iowa and
I do know that something here has been 2 or 3 weeks ago, and this was sponsored by the Department of Energy and by the USDA. It was basically a listening post. I zoomed in, and this was throughout the country. This just wasn't Iowa. This was throughout our country that people participated. The USDA and Department of Energy was trying to collect information on what the feeling was out there in the different states and the different areas and different agricultural districts. The first session was, they're both about an hour and a half long, and I sat in on both of them. The first one was for basically geared towards government officials, supervisors, county or state legislatures and stuff like that. And actually you could get in there and hold your hand up with a question, and being this, there was questions coming in from Washington State, Arizona, New Hampshire, Florida and all over. And then all of a sudden the gal says, we got a question from Clayton, Orton and Iowa. And I kind of stared at me and I thought, well, I'm surprised I even got to ask a question. And I had a couple of questions I posed to them. And then the next one was basically for producers, agricultural people, farmers, ranchers and so far. And there again, that was, the whole nation was covered with people. And that was about an hour and a half long.
But
Basically what happened at the end of that is that what I went away with feeling that a high majority of the people were basically opposed to solar and wind.
Well, the thing is, people talk about why, they've gotten all this in California and all these other states, and you're finding out, the California utility rates have gone up 77% since they did away with fossil fuels. And we're learning more that fossil fuels aren't as bad as what they've been saying. We can't live without CO2. CO2 is the gas of life for us and our plants and those type of things. And it's hard to find the truth. They're not putting out the truth. And there's at least 13 counties that I know of in the state of Iowa that are either battling the turbines or have already done so. And what does that tell us in the state of Iowa? And we have a lot of counties around us, several counties around us that are against it. You got Butler and Grundy and Tama and Blackhawk and Benton and Fayette and there's several of those. But the things that, and I've done a lot of research on this. I'm not going to take your word for it or his word or mine. I've done a lot of research on this, and I don't see a whole lot of positives. And here's Alliant Energy, who's going to raise our utility rates in the next 2 years by 14.5% because of green energy. Well, come on. They've got turbines that they own in the state of Iowa. And I just talked to somebody this weekend from Delaware County, and a lot of people are disgusted with the flicker and the noise. It's and if it's a machine, most people that are here are farm background. How many of you would buy a combine that is only working at 37% efficiency rate? So business wise, it's not good. And we haven't yet, and I guess maybe I have to do it myself. I've asked the board if anybody would do that. But what's this going to do to the businesses like Probes and all of the companies that
spray and, you know, seed and feed and those type of things. We already know that due to the project, the solar project in Lynn County that started out in Palo and is now getting closer and closer to Center Point, those people are losing thousands of dollars. You know, there's a company, I can't think of the company right now, in Center Point that's losing thousands of dollars for that. So what's that gonna do to our other ag-related businesses? And if that happens, if we allow that to happen, it's gonna affect all of the businesses in Independence, all of the businesses in Jessup, and those people are probably gonna have to close down. I mean, it's a negative impact on our economy. Plus, people will not put out, these companies that own these turbines will not put out the truth on the effects of health of humans, animals, and our environment. They talk about global warming. If you look at Germany, Germany's been in this for a long time. It's global warming due to these. And it's affecting the rainfall. If you talk to people in different areas of Iowa, it's affected the rainfall in different counties with all these turbines. So let's get the truth out. And I don't think that these companies, wherever they put up the turbines, are truthful with us and truthful with the people. And what's really sad is that we've got Grassley's been involved, Grandstaff's been involved, and Reynolds have been involved, and they support this. And I don't think they have all the facts. Okay, that's my sermon for today. I'm sorry.
I guess I would just like to comment on the economic effects, you know, what you're saying, how it's gonna affect by putting them up and stuff. I would like to just, not getting into defense, I'm just, or anything on this. I'd just like to say that they're talking 200 acres. I mean, I have got 60 some acres in CRP that I'm not using it. And I signed up for 15 years. I'm not using a grain elevator and not buying fertilizer for it. I'm just doing once in a while, I have to do a burn maintenance and stuff like that. So basically, I'm not supporting the grain elevators and the seed dealers and everything like that because that grounded the CRP. So I mean, that's why I think to go to the extent of trying to figure out how that 200 acres is going to affect the bottom line economy of these grain elevators and stuff, I think it's going to be small. So I don't want to do it the effort to go out there and find out how it's taking 200 acres out of production is going to affect the economy any. That's a small piece of acres
per turbine or 200 acres for the
turbines. For the turbines.
Each turbine or all
No,
70?
all the whole project, they're talking 200 acres. You know, they would be taken out of production.
Yeah. Here's another thing too. Coming from being a superintendent of schools, dealing with taxes and all those type of things. The county would make more money if they put 200 or 70, you know, if we're gonna talk about 70, which of course, if you allow one project to go, there'll be 3 in Buchanan, and it'll just destroy the whole county. Okay, but if you would take 70 houses, it would bring kids in, bring businesses, you know, business for everybody, you know, everybody in Independence or everybody, you know, almost everybody in the county, you would get more money, more revenue than you will with 70 turbines. So compare 70 to 70, and it's probably pretty easy if the city of Independence to get 70 housing facilities or places like that. We're just, it's, you know, and I'm looking at this from another standpoint, is in the area I live, which could have anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 turbines. I know of 4 people, my wife is included, that already suffers from migraines. And there are other people that suffer from vertigo. 4 people that do that. Who's gonna pay for me to take my wife to the hospital when she's got a bad attack with that? You know, with migraines and that type of thing. Who's gonna pay for it? Who's responsible for that? Is that next year, who's in charge of the project right now, which in 5 years will sell it to somebody else, which seems to be the history of these companies? Will they be responsible? Will the landowner be responsible? Or will the county be responsible? And pain and suffering, how much is added to that? And I don't think we've really looked at some of these things from all angles. I don't think.
Well, look at how well the green worked in this cold weather when it went through our nation. A lot of states had 20 below 3 weather. The battery vehicles that were stranded on roads and the charging systems that would not work. That didn't work out very well for them, did it?
And another point I want to make is that you can take a picture of all the roads that lead up to where we're gonna put these turbines if they're allowed. And I will bet you that they'll never replace them like they should be. And you were up to the New Hampton area. I've been up to the New Hampton area and the roads are horrible. And that's even with all the new rock and the stuff that they've done. And I know there's complaints and the people I know in Delaware. So anyway, just, let's get this put it to bed and do the right thing and what's the best for the people of Buchanan County. And I don't think the turbines are. And again, I'm gonna give you when we're done
Okay.
here, I'll give the 14 signatures.
Any other
Thank you for
comments?
listening.
Yeah, I'm gonna just throw in my support, my 100% support for what Bob just said. And just as a little addition, there have been tons of studies now in Germany, in other countries, even in this country, in China, where they have a ton of the wind turbines, and they actually are creating a problem with the climate. They keep calling it a local change of climate, and because it's making it warmer. And the people who don't even have the turbines on their fields are suffering the consequences of lower crop yield, drier soil. Earthworms are dying. It's a whole big deal that it's creating. And they keep saying, well, that's just a local change. Well, okay, how many local changes can we suffer before it's a dramatic global change? And I think we're seeing that now because they just had a report come out that we have exceeded what they thought we would have exceeded by quite a bit for controlling the climate. And you can sit back and you can say, well, how can that happen? Because it hasn't happened before. What's changed? And what's changed is that we have a whole ton of green energy going on through the world, and it's creating its own climate change. And nobody's talking about that. And if you put the terminal as just a local change, well, great, let's just ruin Buchanan County farmers. And let's ruin the ones over here and over here. And eventually we have a global change. And I think that's what we're seeing now. They also have an interesting project where they're getting small nuclear, you heard about that, Bob? Small nuclear facilities that they don't have, like the great big one that we had, that is now defunct thanks to NextEra. We moved very quickly on that. They're smaller ones, so you don't have to bring in big machinery. You can bring in smaller machinery, and you need more of them, but they don't take up very much room. And a lot of them are underground, so they don't pose the danger. For things like that, there's so much stuff that's coming up and that people are researching, and we're going to be stuck with a ton of wind that's sitting out in the fields. And we're going to ruin the farms, and we're going to do all of the things that Bob said, and we're going to be behind the times.
All about you, Tony, on this, on a nuclear thing. I think there's been so many advancements made on that I don't know why it's not being looked at hardly. I think our country's missing out on that.
We are.
I think it's a good thing, and it's been proven it's going to be safer. It was when they were doing it back in the 70s and everything else. There's more regulations in place to protect safety and everything. So I just wish the country would look at that more.
I do too, but I don't think they're going to look at them in counties that are loaded with wind turbines. And that's what Buchanan County will be, because every single time somebody is asked NextEra, how many are you putting in? The answer every time is this project calls for 70 wind turbines. There's a next project on board.
Something I did a little dig on this past week. I had talked to a contractor that's actually did bases on some wind turbines, not maybe of the size that NextEra is looking at, but he did bases, and he's did a lot of CFO, confined feeding operations, and the larger feeding operations now, by the time they get their big pit and their foundation, their walls and everything, he's did many of them too, and he said, you're looking at the same amount of concrete. Basically apples to apples for the large setup that they're using for the concrete for one of the winters. And I know out here and see the life expectancy, this is just information for thought. And we don't really have anything in place that will change this at this time, but out west of town here, there was 2 confinement buildings that were taken down. And basically the walls were just pushed over, and all that concrete, the pit and the walls and everything were just buried and covered with dirt out there. I mean, there's a massive amount of concrete. These feeding operations have a life expectancy on these buildings. I think they're built a lot better than what they were in previous years, but at some time, those buildings have outlived their purpose and have deteriorated stuff. So we wind up with that concrete being buried underground. And I was wanting to talk to Dale Preeb about this because he seems to be up on information like that. And I want to talk to him and see what his thoughts are on that.
You got all the rebar in there as well.
Yeah, right. So,
Well, so I guess I'm missing the point here.
well, when it's talked, this gets into the decommissioning part of it, you know, about how the concrete's got to be fully removed or not, or just.
Okay, so
The common practice seems to be pretty much out there, about 4 foot that's been going on. And to have an ordinance say that it's got to be completely removed and stuff, where we have got a lot of cream concrete being buried right now.
but that doesn't mean we should have more.
Right, exactly. I agree. Yeah. Just saying, do we need to take a look at that too?
Ag building will fall under the ag company law. State, they won't allow you to regulate that.
Yeah. So,
On the nuclear side, it's been a long time since the Navy's used anything but nuclear powered submarines or carriers.
right.
So the small nuclear energy's been around for a long
That's
time.
true, yeah.
Well, there's a guy I know from Fairbank, I don't want to use his name, but his grandson's at the University of Michigan, working on nuclear fusion right now.
Yeah, that's a whole different
Those
ball deal.
cycles are all the time. And that doesn't just destroy or use up as much of the land.
And hydrogen powered cars are out there too. And one of the major automakers was really pushing away from the electric, trying to go to hydrogen, but
Well, like Scott was telling too, you know, living up in Fairbank, the ones who are in Fayette County, the turbines are taken down, they left a lot of that underneath the ground.
I think it's like 20 foot down if they had those things. I think they only went down 10 foot to remove whatever concrete. I think the rest was left.
Yes.
To further add to what Bob mentioned too before about some of the things that NextEra talks about, promises of this and that, which is not a lot of it's true. We always hear about, oh, the benefits, the taxation base, we're gonna help, you know, put addition on the high school, all fix roads and all that good stuff you hear about. You get a prescription from the drugstore, it'll tell you all the good things it's supposed to do. But it also tells you about the side effects of that drug, doesn't it? NextEra doesn't tell you about the side effects, does it? Let's talk about Spahn and Rose, the local hardware store, the local plumbing guy, the builders, all those. If you put up a bunch of turbines around, even Independence, for example, if you get away with that, who is gonna wanna build a home next to a big turbine? Therefore, Spahn and Rose now does not give the money to help build a house. The plumber's not putting in plumbing in a new home because no one's putting up the new home. So all the good things you hear about, they never want to tell you about the bad things. Okay? More food for thought there. Thank you.
That's your job.
The other thing I would like to see in the state of Iowa, all the schools that are making, as some people say, $500,000 or $1 million. Now, when I was superintendent in North Tama, you know, Tama County had some turbines, Gladbrook didn't receive a cent. So if the project goes and it's just covered the independent school district, they would be the only one in the county that would be eligible to get any money at all. But as you know, and we've got our roads guy here, in the county budget, if you get taxation money in, that's the budget system, the number one priority is our roads. Is there gonna be any money left by the time it comes to the schools and anybody else in health will be number two, which it should be. But after you wait for 5, 7, 10 years, I mean, you know, you can't, like I mentioned before, the Fairbank ethanol plant. And the auditor, the county auditor talked about it. It was 15 years before they got their first penny of tax revenue from the buildings from that ethanol plant. Because it changed hands, what, 3 or 4 times every 4 or 5 years. So it's not gonna be instant. The money's not gonna flow in right away, which some people are led to believe. And the schools aren't gonna get as much money as they say, and there's not gonna be a whole lot of money left over. This guy needs the money because we want good roads. As well as the health people want money. So I think the one thing that I think is, I've seen is that basically there's like $9,000 left over. That doesn't go very far.
No.
Hopping off and.
Yeah.
Basically like the other business.
We got a gentleman who's sitting here. I haven't heard nothing from you. Got anything for us this morning?
I was earlier on the docket. I'm Vince Michaels.
Oh, Vince. Okay,
Approved my application.
all right. So you heard that you got a new job now.
Yes.
Hey, thanks for volunteering, moving up to do that. Appreciate it.
Yep. Glad to put my 2 cents in.
Okay, and I don't know, see, we had some trustee training here, what, year ago? Can't remember. We had the extension service come up. The county has been trying to do that every so many years because of the rotation of the trustees and the clerks and everything like that. So sure, it'll probably be a year or so again before that happens again or something like that. But there is booklets out there that you can get the Iowa State Extension Service that tells you about the duties and everything that's available. And actually, you can go right out there and order it through the extension service out here, Harlan Acres. And I don't know if your county had purchased one or not. Your clerk might have that booklet, Sandra. She might. So check, see if they got that booklet before you go maybe order another.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's something that your funds are allowed to pay for. You wouldn't have to pay that out of your pocket. It's minimal cost. It's not much. That's could be covered.
All right. Thank you.
If there's not anything else, motion to adjourn.
I make, anything else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I mentioned we have a water line break out there. The city shut off all the water to the front. But we have over here where